Hello, it's Jabria Jabbers, and I'm going to be doing a movie review of the movie Never Let Go. I'm a bit nervous for this one because I feel like books are more my wheelhouse, but I saw this movie last night and I want to talk about it because it touched on a lot of tones that I feel like are ever present throughout American storytelling, American narratives, in that it has a lot of little references to the Bible, which I'm sure I've missed plenty of. I haven't watched any like explains or detailed breakdowns, so this is all just gonna be straight from me. Before we get started, I'm sitting in the sun, so just bear with me. But also go ahead and subscribe and give a like to this video. So I'm gonna try this thing to show you. I don't think it's gonna work. This is the movie that I'm talking about. Never Let Go. It's starring Halle Berry and these two little boys. Can I pull up the cast? I probably can. No, I can't. Okay, yes, it's starring Halle Berry and these two little boys. Sorry for digging my nose, it's kind of gross. But basically the premise of the story is that there's this mother and two sons, and they live in this house in the middle of nowhere, and the whole thing is that they always must be somehow connected to the house, or else the evil will get them. And so that's the premise of the movie. What did I rate it? What do I rate it out of 5? 5 being the best and 1 being the least or the worst. I give it a 3. And after this point on, there will be spoilers because I'm going to get into details of the film and why I rated a 3, even though I love the movie. Okay, let's see. Does it show the cast? Yes, it does. It's starring Halle Berry, Anthony B. Jenkins, and Percy Daggs IV. I think that's how you say Daggs, D-A-G-G-S. Percy Daggs IV. Came out this September 2024. I love the movie. I think in terms of the point that it was trying to make, it hit the points that it was trying to make. I feel like there's larger conversations to be had around Halle Berry's character alone, who I'll just call Mama or Mother. The whole time I'm watching her continue to tell the boys that if they go outside the house without being attached with a rope, if they let go, then they'll be taken by the evil, they'll be touched by the evil. Any time they almost have these encounters, or they happen to be outside, or they accidentally end up outside without the rope attached to them, she makes them come into the house and say these prayers, and then she locks them into this little compartment in the floor for an hour and makes them basically kind of like repent their sins. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of like biblical religious tones in this movie, even though that's not what she says, but a lot of like religious elements in this movie with her character alone. One of my favorite aspects about Halle Berry's character as the mama was that she sounded crazy. She sounded like she just had some sort of mental disorder. I loved how the directors, the crew, they would only show the monsters and the evil from her perspective, but her sons couldn't see them. And so it's kind of like making the viewer, making the audience kind of believe that maybe this is just a crazy woman and she has a serious mental illness, and the boys need to actually run away from her because she is the danger. But the whole time, because I am who I am, and because I have experienced being called crazy, being looked at as the crazy person, seeing things that aren't there, getting messages from beings that aren't there, even told that there's something mentally wrong with me, I was like, hell no. I'm not falling for it. I believe that she is telling the truth. One of the things that I really liked that she said was that this is the world. She said that more than once whenever her sons, mainly Daggs, who plays the character Nolan, which we'll get into soon, she would, like, he'd question, like, what about other people? Like, there's more to the world. And she'd say, no, this is the world. this is the world. And at one point she said, there's only us and evil. It's black and white. She said there's no in between, which is also, I feel like, a very religious thing to say, like especially in terms of like Christianity. I love that she said that, and I love specifically, like I said, that she said this is our world, as in her 2 sons, their dog, and the house that they lived in was the world. Like, that was it. I love that because that's how the human mind functions. Our perspective is everything. What we think, who we surround ourselves with, that is our world. That is everything that we know. And we're kind of desensitized to anything else. And when you don't expect other things, they don't exist unless your attention is given to it. So I really love that. I can focus on a little bit about Halle Berry's acting. I thought it was superb. I love what she does in all of the roles that she plays, and she changes her accent. And I feel like people don't give her enough props for that because she's a black woman. And I feel like people who watch her speak with more Ebonics or more Southern accents or more country accents, they kind of dismiss it because I feel like people would assume, oh, she's a black woman, so of course she sounds like that. But there are different accents, obviously. There are different people at different places who have different accents in the States. And in each film she plays, I feel like she always takes a little special moment to figure out how they talk, what their accents are like. And I feel like she nailed the accent. I also feel like she did a very good job playing someone who was sane that appears crazy. Like, her character was being very much in their authentic self, but coming from the viewer, coming from the perspective of even her sons, who don't know this truth. They never experienced her truth that she's speaking on. She looks crazy, but it's like the way Halle Berry played the character, there was no hesitation. She was willing to go all in fully with her beliefs and her truth about the things that she has experienced in her attempts to protect her sons. To go into a little bit about more about her character specifically, I really like that she committed, I don't know if we can say this on YouTube, but she became unalive. It's not funny, but I'm laughing because I'm nervous. She became unalive in the greenhouse. She would rather take her own life than become someone who would hurt her children. And I feel like that's also very biblical, like these tones and underlying themes of sacrificing herself. I feel like in a way she also kind of reflects like Mary, because here she is with these 2 sons, but there's no man. They don't ever show her being intimate with the father. The father is absent. It's almost as if she just appeared in this house with these 2 sons and just got them on her own. And then ultimately she was, she sacrificed herself in many ways. She would starve herself so her sons could eat. All of these undertones, but I really like that she died in the greenhouse. I feel like the greenhouse is so symbolic because it represents a place where you grow things in all conditions and in all times of the year. The greenhouse is supposed to be this space where things can grow, and that's what she represented in this middle of nowhere place, in this kind of supposedly post-apocalyptic world where there's not a lot of resources, there's no other help, it's just them. She played the mother, the father, the whole village, the aunt, the uncle, the grandmother, the grandfather to her son. She was all of it, and she provided them food all year round, during winter, spring, fall, summer. She was that, and I just feel like it was very symbolic that that's where she died, was in that place. At the time before she passed on, they were struggling to grow food in there, and the fact that her body was like decaying in there because they left her in the greenhouse, I feel like that also symbolizes like even in her death, she is providing them with fertilization with her body. That's how much she's willing to sacrifice for her children. I do want to talk about the significance of the camera, of the Polaroid camera. Excuse me. Like initially I thought it was just like a random thing to put in there in order to drive the plot for what eventually happens in the final shot of the film, which is the little boy who plays the character Samuel. He's sitting down and there's like this reptilian hand on his shoulder, and it just felt like, oh, that's why she introduced the camera to them, to push the story and like have that moment be significant at the end. But I feel like there's more to it. I feel like the camera kind of represents that thing that they do in novels where they put items. I forget the term for this. As I said, it's been a minute since I've taken an English class. There's a term for it where they put items that are not of the century or not congruent with the time frame of the story into a novel. Let's say, for example, it's the 1980s and they have an iPhone in a show that's supposed to be based in the 1980s. That would be like that. And so that's how that Polaroid camera felt in the scene where she introduced it to her sons. I feel like there must be more significance to the camera. I feel like for one, it was foreshadowing for what would come, but I also feel like the Polaroid specifically is kind of like, it was old and new at the same time. Like the Polaroid camera is very nostalgic, but I feel like it was nostalgic even when it was invented, if that makes sense. And so it's like these incongruent timelines within the camera itself, and I feel like that's somehow significant, probably even in terms of like the biblical references, where these stories are very old and nuanced at the same time, but also still living in the past. It's like multitude of layers. But let me know in the comments if you have any other interpretations or meanings of the camera. So another thing, so obviously the brothers, they have their little beef. One of the brothers, Samuel, he is very steadfast in his belief of his mother. He believes her, he trusts her, he has like 100% faith. And then we have the wobbly one, which is Nolan. He has questions, he has a lot of pushback against his mother and what she's saying. He's like, maybe she's lying, maybe she's not telling the truth. And so my initial thought, was Cain and Abel. Like I was like, oh, this is the story of like Cain and Abel played out with these two little boys. But then in the story, their roles kind of swapped, and Nolan became the one who had faith. And then Samuel became the one who let go of his faith, and that's the whole thing of the movie, never let go, right? What I did in the aftermath after this switch, I looked up their names. So Nolan means noble, to be noble, a noble person, and Samuel is a phrase. It's not one word, it's a phrase. And I think in Hebrew or something, it means name of God. But anyways, Samuel was the one who anointed Saul to become a king. So it's like he gave his power, he transitioned power to someone else. And that's basically what happens to Samuel in the film. He gave his position of power as the keeper of the home, the keeper of the safe place, over to the evil. He allowed it in. And so going based on their names, you can see that the switch was kind of inevitable, that it was going to happen in the film. And so from this perspective, you can't really say the story of Cain and Abel, can you? And so I was thinking, like, they kind of went from Cain and Abel to Adam and Eve. And I love that about the movie, because I feel like in our very biased minds, we see Adam and Eve as adult people, for one, not children. And we also see Adam and Eve as man and a woman. And then we also see Adam and Eve as having a sexual relationship. And so I like the idea that these two boys could still represent Adam and Eve, even though they're boys, they're children, even though they're both male and not, male and female. And even though their relationship is not sexual and not romantic, it is brotherly, it is familial, it is platonic. That is the relationship. And I saw their mother, Mama Halle Berry, I see her as kind of the snake who was tempting them, as well as the evil as the snake that was tempting them, if that makes sense. I don't know. I feel like the mama kind of played God, but also the snake. And then I feel like the snake also played God, but also the snake. And I'll just briefly go into what I mean by that. So from what I remember in the story of Adam and Eve, God is like, don't eat don't eat the fruit from the tree, not eat the tree from the fruit. Don't eat the fruit from the tree. Just all you have to do. And so that's Halle Berry's character playing God. All you have to do is stay connected to the house. Always have the rope on when you go outside. Always, give praise to the house and be grateful for the house. That's the way in which she plays God. But she also plays the snake, not just literally at the end when she becomes the evil, but also in terms of like tempting them with her own beliefs, if that makes sense. Like, believe me, believe me, believe me, follow me, follow me, follow me. Because that's the same thing the snake did, right? In the story, like, oh, it's gonna be fine, just trust me, it's okay, you can have this, we can eat the dog. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what she was feeling. By the way, the eating the dog part, I was rolling. I was having such a laugh because I was like, that's exactly what Trump was saying. They're eating dogs and cats. I thought that was so funny. Anyways, and so the evil also plays God and the snake at the same time, whereas the evil is like, come to me, come to me, come to me, come out here and be free. So I feel like in that way it plays the snake, but it also plays God in terms of like, let me in, like, trust me, like, all you have to do is make sure you come outside without the rope, let me save you, let me take care of you. And so that's where you see the issue with, I feel like, the religious approach. Like, there's both teams, depending on your perspective, are rooting for the same thing. They just want control over you. And I feel like Nolan, with his name representing nobility, honor, righteousness, that's what he does. It's not about following the good or the evil. It's about you and your own strength and your own power and your own autonomy. And that's what he kind of does at the end to free himself. He doesn't welcome in, but he pushes in the evil, who is the evil, and his mother, like I was saying, both at the same time, into the underboard floor thing, and he faces it head on. And that's what dissolves it, is his integration of this darkness and releasing of this darkness, this facing of his shadow. So there's that. So I'll just get in briefly about what I think, because I think a lot of people may have been confused, and I haven't done any research. This is just what I think is going on in the show, because at the end you see that the mother is both right and wrong. There was evil outside, but at the same time she was also wrong, that the rest of the world hadn't perished. There were still people, they were still thriving, there were still cities, people had iPhones, people were flourishing, so she was right and wrong. I feel like there is some sort of family curse, and could be all the way down from the Bible. Like, they could be direct relatives of the first humans, according to the Bible. And she rebelled against her mother when she was younger, went off into the world and saw that her mother was right. In that there's evil far away from the house. And I also feel like she did have, I don't know, that kind of motherly position of like, I'm gonna omit certain truths from my children so that they never have to experience the pain and suffering that I experience. But in that same motion, she is taking away that supposed freedom that she's trying to give them from the pain, which I feel is what a lot of people kind of get trapped into. I feel like the helicopter scene was more significant than we think. Let me know in the comments if you have some sort of significance that you know about from the helicopter scene. But I'll get into the thing that basically started off, which was this phrase that Samuel said. He said, "She loves me more than you. She loves me more than you." And I feel like with that being the opening catalyst to the story and the plot, and that also being the closing of the film itself, that phrase has so much significance. Like, it's about this struggle, this powered struggle between who is loved more and who isn't. And I feel like that's very symbolic of like the devil, and what the devil wants you to get caught up in is this sense of competition, a sense of comparison and judging yourself against another person, versus what I feel like Nolan eventually did in the story was freed himself from needing that approval from anyone but himself. And like I said, I think it's significant that they were in the helicopter during that time. Like, they could have showed them in the hospital when they landed that scene to reveal that Samuel was still the evil, but they didn't. They did it while it was still up in the air. Like, it's to be continued. And so yeah, 3 out of 5 stars. 3 out of 5 stars because I feel like it could have been better in terms of just making certain things more clear and more interesting. Yeah, I didn't really like the scenes with all the creepy evil creatures. I feel like they were pretty flat. So that's why 3 stars. But the reason 3 stars is because I think the movie excelled in many areas. I feel like it's very difficult to shoot a film in basically one house and some trees and not bore the audience to death. That's very, very difficult to do. 3 stars also because at one point Halle Berry's character, the mother, did die, and so 2 young actors held like a good chunk of the movie, if not half, I would say 1/3 of the movie. They like held down, or maybe not 1/3, a little less than half, we'll say. What is that? I don't know. Is it 3/8? A little less than half of the movie they held down on their own as these very young actors, which I think is very, very difficult to do. So bravo to that. Again, this is the end. Subscribe if you haven't already, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.